Hello everyone and happy new year. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Faye and today we are putting our trust in the bookshelf scavenger hunt to pick my first read of the year. Now I usually just go off vibes and those vibes are usually cozy atmosphere, cozy vibes, cozy characters with a sort of heartwarming message throughout. Is sort of, I think, what it's been the past couple of years. I actually can't remember what I first read this year in 2024, but I thought, why not let this little scavenger hunt pick my first read of the year. Now I have the questions all written down and I think we're just going to get into it. So I've most recently seen Ellen Catherine do this video, but I've also seen Jessie from, I think it's Jessie Reads. There's so many people that have done this video and I'm not too sure who the original creator was, but I have seen it around a lot. And I've just got the general questions, which I think were the original questions. I'm not too sure, sorry if that is wrong. First prompt is pick a book you gave 5 stars and then pick a book you would recommend for people who also enjoyed that book. This is really difficult for me because I always think of things people would enjoy if for books that I particularly didn't like or didn't have any feelings towards, but a 5-star. I'm just completely destroying my shelves doing this. I don't know if you can see. But the book I gave 5 stars was Annihilation, and I think if you too enjoyed this book, you should also read Prophet by Helen MacDonald and Sin Blanche? I'm not sure, sorry. But I would recommend these two together because it sort of follows this area that's otherworldly, a bit unknown, you don't know what's going on. And also, all throughout, you sort of don't really find out what's going on, you're just sort of left guessing. And it's got the horror aspects, it's got the ecological aspects and the mystery aspects. So I think if you liked Annihilation, try Prophet, because I loved both of these and gave both of these a 5 stars actually. So then count the number of letters in the title of that book, then pick a random spot on your shelf and count to that number book. Okay, so Prophet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Got seven letters, so I'm gonna pick a random spot and then pick the 7th book. This is really hard because you can't really see, but I think I'm just going to do it on this bookshelf because a lot of those are special editions. So let's close my eyes. I'm going to ignore the top shelf. I feel like I look so silly. Ignore the top shelf because that's all Sarah J Maas. And then we need to count 7 from somewhere. There's also a box in my way here. Okay, so now I count 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski, which is the first book in the Witcher series. For this one, I have to look at this cover and find a book with similar elements on that cover. Okay, so grey, white and black, and we've sort of got an animal on the front, a bird, a wolf. So for this one I've chosen Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. So we've got the grey, white and black sort of going on, and then also an animal in the middle. I think this is the closest I can get, to be honest. We're just gonna have to go with that. And now for this one, we have to reverse the page number of this book and find a book with the same page count. So this has This has 478 pages, so I need to find a book with 874 pages. 874. We're gonna have to go with House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J Maas, which is 834 pages. Oh. This is the biggest book I own, other than Kingdom of Ash, which is 980, but that's over. So I think this is closest. We're going to get to that one. And then for this one, I have to... What are you doing? List some of the tropes in this book and find a book with similar tropes. Now this is hard because I've not read this book, but I know it's an urban fantasy. Has it got enemies to lovers? It's got fae. Is that a trope? This is really difficult because it's the third book in a series that I've not read. Okay, I've gone with Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. It's not tropes. I don't know if these are even remotely similar, and I don't think this has fae in it, but I might be wrong. But all I know is this has a very headstrong female main character, and apparently from what I've heard, Bryce Quinlan from Crescent City is quite a headstrong character. So forgive me if this is completely wrong, but I have no idea and I don't want to spoil myself for anything in Crescent City, so I apologise. So for this one, I have to find a book with the same colour combination on the cover as this one. So we've got white, green, orange and black. Okay, so for this one we've gone with Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I think they're quite similar. It's more cream than white, but the green and orange, similar vibes, similar colours. Okay, so then for this one we have to read the first sentence and pick a word and find a book with that word in the title or on the cover. Oh no, that's acknowledgements, never mind. In the middle of the ocean there was a girl who lived upon a rock. Okay, so for this one I've gone Upon a Frosted Star. Go to the acknowledgements and find a book written by an author with a name the same or similar to one listed. I've seen various videos of this where people have really struggled because there's just hardly anyone listed. So hopefully I've got someone here. Teresa Cohen, thank you Teresa. Katie Seaman, Thompson, Georgia Green, Brogan Fury, Kirsty Capes, Sarah Lundy, Sarah Sebi, Angie Dobbs, Charlotte Phillips. Okay, so there's a lot to go for. Let me have a look what we've got. So I've done this on just first names, and there, let me find it. There was someone in here, Rachel Rowlands, and I've gone with Rachel Gillig because the spelling of Rachel is spelled the same. So One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. So for this one, I have to look at this cover and find a book with a similar looking cover. Okay, so there's green, there's some foiling, a bit of red, some smoke and some buildings. So kind of similar. We've got the people or person in the middle, we've got like the castle, the smoke and the green. I think these are close enough. It does say similar looking, not the same. Would you agree? And some foiling on there. This is now the last prompt, so this will determine the first book that I read in 2025. So add your birth month and day together, turn to that page and find a book with that word on the title. So 16th of January, so we're looking for page 17. This is a lot of dialogue. This was so incredibly difficult. So this page is something about talking hats. Just a lot of dialogue and mention of hats, which is very difficult. And I didn't want to be boring and just do the words to or a, but I found She told Pink Bonnets they had dimpled charm and smart hats trimmed with velvet that they were witty. And I have Pink Slime on my TBR by Fernanda Trias. This is about a city in an ecological crisis. It follows an unnamed narrator who has stayed in this city and spends her days trying to disentangle herself from the two relationships that had once meant everything to her, and looking after the young boy who's been placed in her care. As the world in which they move becomes smaller, she reflects on the collapse of other emotional ties in her life and the emergence of a radical yet tender solitude. It's a multi-award winning novel that offers profound reflections on motherhood, marriage and caregiving set against the backdrop of a crumbling city. This sounds right up my street, to be honest. Ecological crisis, reflections on life, an unnamed narrator. Wasn't what I was expecting, but here we are. So this will be the first book that I read in January, the first book I read in 2025, and I'm going to take you along with me. Happy New Year, everyone. It's actually the 4th of January right now. I was hoping to update you on this book a lot sooner, but I just haven't. New Year's a bit weird because I had New Year's Day off and then went back to work, and it's just been a weird week. It's that in-between time between Christmas, New Year's, but also going back to work. It's just made it a little bit weird. I just got my hair done today, so the blonde is back, which I'm very happy about. I thought I'd best update you on how Pink Slime is going. I was not expecting to read this right now. I wasn't expecting this book to come up from the bookshelf scavenger hunt, but you know what? It's good that it did, because I don't actually know when else I would have picked this up. And I don't think I properly explained what it was about, because I was just a bit discombobulated from the scavenger hunt, because my books and my bookshelves were in disarray. They still sort of are. They need a big refresh. And as I said, I just wasn't expecting this one to be picked, so I was a bit thrown off. So in this, we follow an unnamed narrator who is currently decided to stay in the city that is got an ongoing ecological crisis. It's sort of airborne, it's in the waters, in the rivers, something like that. What I will say is, first off, having read quite a bit, I'm currently 87 pages in, is that I was expecting a bit more focus on the ecological crisis, but we're sort of being given little bits here and there about how it's affecting people's lives. I think I found this book just after I read Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, and I was drawn to the ecological crisis aspect of that. So because I was just drawn to that bit, I think going into this I was expecting to have more of a focus on that and exploring what this crisis is, and how it's sort of come to this city and what it is. But we do get little bits about it here and there. I think the first paragraph of this is really strong, and it sets the tone for the rest of the book and what these people are going through that we're following. It says, when the fog rolled in, the port turned into a swamp. Shadows fell across the plaza, filtering between the trees and leaving the long marks of their fingers on all they touched. Under each unbroken surface, mould cleaved silent through wood, rust bored into metal. Everything was rotting, we were too. So that's just a little bit of the first paragraph, and I just think that is so strong and really hooks you on what is going on here, what's happening to these people. And I was hooked as soon as I read that first paragraph. So we have this crisis, this fog, this red, I think it was described as like a red mist coming in and out of the city. That's sort of the background for our character and the characters around her. I will say, I think having the main character be, or our narrator be unnamed is really clever, because I think it puts a focus on a crisis, or it's like the pandemic. It puts an emphasis on sort of when this thing is going on, you're actually like, your lives seem so insignificant because this whole thing, this whole devastation is going on around you, and you're just there trying to live your life, but also trying to get through it. So in one sense, it's like you've got this crisis going on, you're insignificant whilst this is going on. But I think it's really clever that we have the unnamed narrator over here, and all the characters around her are named, and I think that shows sort of the duality of human life, if you will. So in the grand scheme of things, quite insignificant, to put it bluntly, but you know, in your world you have all these people who either rely on you or have had deep connections with, or you've had or have still got close relationships with, and that's what builds your world, essentially. I think it's quite interesting how it's sort of drawing these two parallel discussions and thoughts in one, and drawing to the sort of crisis aspect of this. It's like reminiscent of the pandemic, and I never thought I would want to read a book about that ever, to be honest. But there was one book I read last year, Small Rain, which was set during the pandemic, and I actually really enjoyed that, and I am enjoying this. And although it's not set in the pandemic, what's going on is reminiscent of the pandemic. And I think it has a lot of discussion about the beginnings and endings of life, of occasions. So when she's starting her story, she's like, I'm not too sure what the beginning was. There was this ending, so does that mark this beginning? Because you just focus on the ending, sort of thing. So there's a lot of discussion about that, which I am really enjoying. Sorry, I'm just looking at notes I've made, just to make sure I don't miss anything whilst updating you. And with those discussions, it sort of made me wish that I appreciated the sort of quiet moments that the pandemic and the lockdown brought us and myself personally. But you're just wanting the end of it, because it's this whole unknown, scary thing going on around you, this complete devastation. But it was horrible, and it's been heartbreaking for so many people. But for myself personally, I think some of the discussions in this book is just making me appreciate, or wish I had appreciated, those quiet moments. Rather than just waiting for it to be over, just thinking, you know what, I've got a whole month, 2 months, 3 months of just appreciating daily life, of just not having the stress of uni, of work, of all the hustle and bustle. So it's kind of given me a different thought process to what I had previously. I feel like I'm just rambling, but this is one of those books for me that there's not a lot happening, but what's being said is making me have a lot of thoughts and reflections. So there is one character in here called Mauro. He is in the care of our narrator, and he has this condition that no matter how much you eat, you're never full. So this kid is literally always hungry, and we're seeing her have to lock cupboards, lock fridges, lock anything that he could try and eat. Like, I just read a scene last night or the night before where he was that hungry that he ate a cotton ball and was choking on it because he's just always hungry. He doesn't know how not to be hungry. And right now I'm not completely sure what the purpose of this condition is, because I think the writing in this is very purposeful. Everything's got a message in it, everything has a purpose. But I think he is a character that is used to explore the topic of motherhood, as our narrator has a very sort of fractured relationship with their mother. And maybe even to show how this crisis is impacting children. So I am really enjoying it. When I'm reading it, I'm sort of like, where's this gonna go? I think I'm also partly drawn to keep reading when I am reading it. I want to see more of this crisis. We are getting these little bits about the description of what's going on around them, but I'm fascinated to know like how it first came, how it looks, how it feels. The one thing I will say is that it can be slightly confusing sometimes to read, because it occasionally dips in and out of a flashback, but there's no real like benchmark of when this flashback is happening. To be perfectly honest, I didn't realise it was happening. It was only because I read a review of someone saying that there's flashbacks that I was then like, oh, okay. But as you do get further in, that does seem a bit more apparent, just by conversations that are between the narrator and their mother. Yeah, I'm not sure if you would have gained anything off the thoughts and rambles that I just gave you, but I am just under halfway through, so I'm hoping to read a bit tonight and finish this tomorrow, and then I can give you my final thoughts on this book and what I thought about it. So if I don't see you before, I will see you once I finish this with my final thoughts. Hello everyone, it is a few days later and I have finished Pink Slime by Fernanda Trias. I have some thoughts and I really don't know where to sit with this one in terms of a rating. After I last checked in with you, when I hit around the 60% mark, I just got really confused. I think I previously mentioned that she's telling us a story of what happened and she doesn't know whether to start from the beginning, because what is the beginning? But it got really confusing because it was sort of flashbacks within flashbacks, because what she's telling us has all been and gone. But then I think what happened is certain things that she was saying brought on memories for herself, which was then included. And it got really confusing trying to differentiate between what's happening now at the point in the story that she's telling us and what has happened prior to this. And I remember when I got to the 60% mark and finished reading for the night, I was just very confused, wasn't sure what's going on. And as well, at this time there was something building up plot-wise, but the unnamed narrator didn't know, we didn't know, I just had this tension, so I knew something was happening, but with all the unknown and then the confusion, I was just left very confused, and it sort of left a bit of a, I guess, unsettled feeling on how I feel about this book. But after pushing through and reading a bit more, it did become apparent that, as I said, it's flashbacks within flashbacks, and I think certain things that she was telling us about what was happening just triggered some memories for herself about those people that she loves around her, and that, I guess, is where the discussions and reflections on the motherhood, marriage and caregiving came in, because it related back to the characters that relate to those topics. I think the writing in that way is very clever, as it shows how entwined our narrator is with these relationships and how sort of stuck on them she is. But as I said, it was just a bit confusing and sort of made me lose, not interest, just like lose the hook that it had on me. And upon finishing this, it sort of becomes apparent that the story that she's telling is told in two parts. So the first 50% is introducing us to this ecological crisis and our narrator and those close to her that she's involved with. And I think that is to build the relationship between the reader and the narrator, and also get an idea on those that she has a relationship with. And then I would say the last, or the other 50%, really highlights the destruction and devastation that this crisis has had on the city and the people in it. It really sort of took a turn, and we're being presented, rather than in little sentences here and there, we're fully being presented how this society is completely broken down, and the lengths that people are having to go to just to get some food. It's actually, the ending of this is quite haunting and eerie. I guess you're just left feeling devastated for our character and what the people in this city are having to go through. Yeah, I don't think other than that I have too much to say on it. I really love the writing. As I said before, it's writing that has a purpose, it's intentional, everything has a message and something to say in it, and I think it's really clever. I love the way it's thought out. It was just that bit in the middle where I started to flag in terms of enjoyment because of getting confused. And I think this is a book where if you read this with someone, you could have so many discussions on what's discussed in here. There's so many discussions to be had on the themes and topics that are represented throughout the book. And I think it's definitely one that I want to reread, because I've just got a feeling every time you read this book you could take something new away from it, because it's got that many layers and different thought processes to be taken away. But in terms of rating, as I said, I'm really stuck on it, because in my gut I'm thinking a 3.5, but then because of the writing I'm like, it doesn't deserve a 3.5, it deserves more, but I just don't know where I sit with it. So I think it's going to be one of those books that I just don't rate. I don't do that very often. I don't rate non-fiction or memoirs. Usually with all fiction books I have some sort of rating for them, but with this one I just really don't know where I am, and I've sat with it for a couple of days and I still don't know what it is. I would also like to apologise for the mess behind me. We're currently hiding out because we're waiting for the plumber to come, and the cats have got to stay in this room so they can just come and go as they please. So I apologise for the mess. But yeah, that is the first book of the year read. I'm really happy I got to this, and I think it is one that will stay with me for quite a while, just thinking about what I've read. Not what I was expecting to read for the first book of 2025, but here we are. I had a good time, a very thought-provoking time, and I think if you're really into dystopian or fiction that really makes you think about things and have your own reflections, you would really enjoy it. It is quite a slow-paced book, I would say, so if you don't like the slower-paced books, maybe this one won't be for you, but I still would recommend it. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a like and comment down below what your first book of the year will be, or has been already if you've already finished one. And please subscribe, because it really means so much to me to have your support and you just following along for the videos. But yeah, that's everything. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in whatever comes next.